If your child is hitting, throwing toys, or melting down several times a day, it can feel exhausting, especially when everything you seem to try is not working. What if I told you that I have a four-step proven approach that you can use to turn these behaviors around in days or weeks? Listen to this episode and stay until the end, where I'll tell you how you can start seeing progress today. The story of this episode starts right here in my own home a few years ago. Rachel Smith, our program director, brought her then 3-year-old son Everett over for a photo shoot. He's the cutie on some of my photos. Because it was a new environment with some pressure to sit and take pictures, Everett began throwing toys and he even hit Rachel, his mom, a few times. Nothing extremely dangerous, but definitely concerning. In the moment, Rachel did what many loving parents do who are trying to do gentle parenting. She's like, no, thank you. And she tried to reason with him, offered him bribes, and said things like, if you're not nice, we'll have to leave. But none of this helped. And by the time she left my house, she was overwhelmed and near tears. That night, I sent her an email with a very simple plan. No punishments, no yelling, just a calm and consistent way to stop throwing and hitting by removing attention and setting clear rules. What happened next was remarkable. Within just 2 days, Everett's hitting and throwing dropped from several times a day to almost zero. Let's dive into the story and go over what I told her to do in my email and how that worked for Rachel and her family so that you can try it with your family as well. First of all, when you go places, like to my house or to your cousins or to the grocery store or wherever you go, I think it would be best if Everett and 2-year-olds would not be carrying things with them. Because if he's carrying things and Rachel has her baby, um, and then his hands are busy, so he might not be able to hold hands for safety. He may throw things if he gets mad. So in general, I would say one rule of thumb is when you're going places, try to leave those items either in the car, in the diaper bag. You be in control of the items that could potentially become a problem.
Yeah, we've been leaving things in his cup holders. So he
Okay.
knows like when we get out of the car, they go in his cup holders and we're good.
Okay.
So that's
That's
been
great.
helpful.
Awesome. And then if throwing or hitting, we're going to mostly talk about throwing, but the same rules apply for hitting or throwing or kicking or flopping to the ground. Like we have to be consistent. And not only Rachel needs to do these things, but her husband needs to do these things, the babysitter, if he's being watched by anybody, everybody needs to be on the same playbook because kids are really smart. So the next thing is if he does throw, not to make him pick it up, especially right then and there. You need to ignore the behavior you don't want and attend to the behavior you do want. Don't use threats or bribes like threatening to leave or bribing that if he's good, if he shapes up, you'll go for ice cream. Those are both very dangerous in terms of shaping up more attention-seeking behavior in the form of problem behaviors. We already covered saying I'm sorry. It just usually doesn't help the situation, whether it's really right then or later. And when we're talking about the problem behavior, 15 minutes later, an hour later, a day later, that is all bringing up attention about the problem behavior. Once the problem behavior happens and is solved and is done, the slate is clear. We are never talking about that problem behavior again to the child. I spell it if I need to. We can keep data on it. That's all fine. But talking to a child after the fact, especially a child who's young or has a developmental level of a younger child, they're just not going to understand it fully. And even if they do, it's just more attention. Some people say they use social stories, like in anticipation, we don't hit. And again, too much attention on the behaviors you don't want. So I don't agree with social stories for preventing or after the fact of problem behaviors. They tend to backfire. We talked about leaving toys in the car and the diaper bag. And the other thing is we want to, at the grocery store or at the park or at my house, we want to be the givers of good things. So having him bring his own things is a bad idea. Okay, so those are the basics. So then what I suggested is that you and your husband Riley sit down with Everett when he's calm and in a good mood and after dinner that day, and just set some new ground rules. Okay, and I said, don't blame it on Miss Mary's house, for God's sakes. So sit him down and so what, tell our,
so we did, Riley and I had a brief conversation about, what that would look like. So we were on the same page going into it. And, we just sat him down and we said, hey, buddy, like, you're a big boy, you're 3, and we can't throw our toys and we can't hit people like that. We just can't do that anymore. So we're going to have some new rules, and this is what they're going to look like. And then we said, if you throw something, mommy and daddy are going to help remind you that that's not a good idea. And we're going to have to take everything that's in your hands at that time. And he kind of looked at me. He was like, okay. And then I said, and we're not going to talk to you until you calm down. So once you calm down, then you can have your things back, but not when we're upset. And he was just like, okay. And then I said, and we're only going to be allowed to throw balls outside. That's a big new rule. Cause Riley and I both, like, we were on the same page mainly, but like, sometimes we'd be like, oh, well, it was just like a little thing, or, that was just like a soft ball that he threw inside or whatever, like it wasn't clear for him either. So, we all 3 of us are on the same page. And when the sitter came, she's on the same page, that this is what that looks like. We only throw balls outside. We don't throw anything inside. And if we do, anything that's in his hands gets taken. So we had the chance
you warned him that you were going to take everything out of his hands gently. We're
not
grabbing it. And it's pretty easy, especially if you have a 3-year-old, to slide the dinosaur out of his hands after he threw the train. Like, you might as well get everything out of his hands and then let him calm down.
Yep. So we would
calming down. There's no talking to him. There's no rubbing his back or hugging him. And well, you're like, well, that sounds cruel. That doesn't sound very child friendly. But you know what? It only takes a couple seconds or a couple minutes max till a child realizes, wow, they're serious. And I said to Rachel, like, you can even use, and I don't know if I have a blog on this or anything, but it's the talk amongst yourself procedure, where if Rachel and Riley are in the room, he gets his stuff taken out. Everett might be crying, and Rachel and Riley could just be having a discussion about something else. Well, yeah, work was a little tough today, blah, blah, blah. As soon as Everett gets quiet, and then so it's like, I want juice. Oh, you want juice? Okay, let's get some juice. Okay, can you calm down? You can use the shush and give. Shh. Okay, say it like this. Mommy, can I have some juice? Mommy, can I have some juice? Sure, buddy. Let's go get some juice. The slate is wiped clean. You are back to your positive energy. You're spoiling grandma. And so that's what you explained to him. And then
the opportunity to practice that evening.
That evening. So he was throwing, I think you said, about 3 times a day on average. Just on average. Selection. You don't need a strict baseline on it. And so that night he forgot. And when you told him the rules, you said, you're probably going to forget. We're going to help you. We're going to remind you. And so how did that go?
So he threw something, I think it was probably a dinosaur, and I picked that one up and took the one that was in his hand, and I literally just kind of turned around and started talking to my husband. That was a good dinner, whatever. He's crying because now I've taken what he wanted.
And
And I
he's taken your attention,
Yep,
which you're used to getting for throwing, which is
exactly.
really powerful.
So now I've taken that. I think he cried for 30 seconds, and then he came over and he like, tugged on my shirt, and he was just like, mommy, mommy, I want my dinosaur. And I was like, I turned around and I was like, hey buddy, like, I'm glad to see you smiling. Cause at that point, like when I turned around, he like smiled at me and I was glad to see you smiling. And I was like, what do you want? He was like, I want my dinosaur. And I was like, okay, like, here's your dinosaur. And then we just didn't talk about it. And then it was like pretty close to bedtime. So there wasn't any problems that night. And then the next day, I think he, we had a good morning. And then like right before nap, as he was getting tired, it happened again. And I took the things and I turned away. And now at that point, my husband's at work. So I just kind of scrolled my phone, or looked like I was scrolling my phone, again, taking my attention away from him. And I think he cried like 20 seconds, and he was like, I know what I need to do. So he came over and he was like, hi, mommy. And I was like, hey, buddy, and he's happy. And he was like, I'd like my dinosaur, please. Okay, here's your dinosaur. He's happy, whatever. So that worked. And we really, I think, like had like 2 or 3 more times where he threw and we needed to do that before, he would then like think about it. And like, I'm gonna throw, and then he would stop and he'd like take a deep breath and do his thing. Even to the point where we were at the beach with family and his cousins around the same age, and they were throwing sand. And even though we were outside, sand isn't something we throw. So he picked up a handful and he looked at me and he was like, mommy, can I throw the sand? And I was like, I don't think that's a good idea, buddy. Like, let's put it down. So then he put the sand down and was totally fine, but even thought about it beforehand. Like, even though they're doing that, I know I'm not supposed to. So I was like, all right, like we got this. So it was
And
definitely
you had
encouraging.
commented, I mean, that's really good to like go from 3 times a day to like 0 or
Yep.
near 0 levels.
Yep.
And you commented to me like he's so much easier to deal with. And
So
you,
much easier.
yeah,
And like even like putting the things in the car seat before we get out of the car, like now I don't have to keep track of which dinosaur did we bring or which whatever did we bring and not lose it. But like he's, because I'm thinking about things ahead of time and setting things up better and reinforcing things as I need to, it's just so much easier. Like I took him and his brother and our niece, who's 5, so a 5, 3, and a baby, and went to the like little kid theme park by myself, and was totally confident, and it was fine because I knew that he had been listening, that we don't have the opportunity to throw things, and what I needed to do to set him up to be successful. So definitely feel better.
yeah, yeah. And it doesn't matter, like if you're listening and you're like, yeah, my child's 2 or my child's 5 and has autism and doesn't speak and won't understand all that, you could still use these same techniques. You can still have rules. Even if you don't explain the rules, you could still have rules that you were going to put the dinosaur in the train in the cups. You might have to add some more reinforcement to get out of the car without the stuff. You can still take away the things if there's throwing. You can still talk amongst yourself or scroll on your phone until you get calm, which may be a few seconds, it may be a few minutes. But as long as you stay with the child and you know they're safe, you don't want it to escalate on top of that. And obviously, if you've got severe problem behaviors, you're probably going to need a behavior analyst to be right there to coach you. I mean, this is Rachel. She's well trained. She's a special ed teacher. She's got lots of years of experience, but it also shows you that it can be turned around pretty quickly and pretty effectively with some of these proven techniques. This story shows that big changes can happen fast and sometimes in just a few days when you have the right plan and you stay consistent. If your toddler or preschooler has autism or signs of autism or just major problem behaviors with speech delay and is hitting, throwing, or having daily meltdowns, you can start turning things around today. I urge you not to continue to wait and to worry. Now is the time to join us in our online course and community where you can learn the proven 4-step approach and get community support so that you can make progress this week. Get all the details and sign up at marybarbera.com/join toddler. Get it now at the best pricing and bonuses, and I can't wait to see your introduction in our community today. Thanks so much, and I'll see you right here next time.